For how many innocent civilians Batman manages to save, he sure has a hard time when it comes to protecting his own sidekicks and Bat family members from danger. In fact, sometimes he is even the one to blame when it comes to his Robin's emotional and physical trauma. Not only did Robin have to stand by and witness Bruce drink a poisonous concoction so that he might momentarily die, but he also was involved in that scheme. It was Robin's role to go and retrieve the doctor, who was at Wayne Manor to visit the elderly butler, Alfred. Dick had to pretend this all happened randomly, by the way, and wasn't planned at all. While the doctor attempted to revive Bruce, he began to worry with every passing second if Bruce would manage to recover and how awful Dick would feel if Bruce died. He was like, this is terrible, what if it doesn't work out? Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that you'd feel that way. I feel like this is not an activity that your kid's sidekick should be involved in. You shouldn't just be like, I'm just gonna take my own life and put myself in this place, but don't worry, it'll all work out, and just be here and make sure it works out. That's a lot of pressure. I'm like 11, Batman. Number 9, made Robin dig his own grave. This actually happened to Dick Grayson's Robin in the comic World's Finest in issue 197. One of those stories where the plot is all based around one shocking, comic-selling cover-featured moment. In this case, the moment was getting Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen and Robin to dig their own graves, while Superman and Batman stand over watching them, threatening to kill them once they're finished. Oh my goodness. How could this happen? Well, I mean, Batman was going to do the killing here anyways, because Superman has a very strict moral code that he simply cannot break. But I know, you're probably wondering, how did this happen? It's so crazy. Look at this cover. Well, this seems awful because, like I said, shock factor. In reality, this all came about as a misunderstanding. Batman had bumped his head and believed that he was Mafia crime boss Lucas. I think I'm saying that right. Lucas. However, once his memories were recovered, it was too late. Superman was forced to seemingly kill Jimmy, and Superman using his heat vision at the behest of the real Lucas, who appeared on scene. But don't fret though, this was all a clever ruse created by Superman to help them all escape safely, as well as apprehend the criminal. The overall plan also involved wax figures and a little piece of mint candy, because classic comics. I was wondering that when I saw when I saw Jimmy and Robin get melted, that's what I was wondering. I was like, wait a minute. They melted like pretty intensely, like a candle. They must be wax figures. Also, I love that can all happen in front of like a bunch of people and everyone's like, yeah, that looks legit. Alright friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to hear about some more dastardly deeds that Batman has done to Robin, trust me, there are lots more, because classic comics and everyone was terrible back then. So be sure to let us know that you love this list by giving it a thumbs up, and maybe I'll have some more terrible things that Batman did to Robin to tell you about. Number 8, Rick Grayson. In a weird way, Rick Grayson was kind of Batman's fault, although KG Beast was the one who shot Nightwing, resulting in the brain damage that would of course affect his memories and leave him as Rick Grayson. Just around the time we had only just got him back as Nightwing as well. It would later be revealed that this incident was actually part of a larger plot, a plot to break Batman concocted by Bane and in part Thomas Wayne Sr., aka Flashpoint Batman. This proves that just being close to Batman can lead to all sorts of messed up things happening, including you forgetting who you are and instead of getting to be a hero again, becoming a very lost man named Rick, and later a brainwashed pawn of Jokers known as Dickie Boy. Rick Grayson was not a great time for Nightwing in the comics, and it all pretty much happened just because he was close to Batman and could be used as a tool to hurt him. So basically just one of the worst things I guess Batman can even do to anyone is be like, hey, you're cool and I like you. If Batman likes you, that's not good, probably. Villains will come for you. Number 7, letting them fight it all. One of the worst things he ever did to Robin, Stephanie Brown, was probably to have ever let her fight at all, especially as this was considered such a controversial topic by Batman's friend at the time, Dr. Leslie Tompkins. In the story War Games, Stephanie Brown attempts to win Batman's favor back after being fired by him by putting a plan in motion to give Batman control over all the rival gangs of Gotham. Unfortunately, this doesn't work out, because she's missing crucial information involving the real identity of Matches Malone. Spoiler, Matches Malone is Batman. And Stephanie ends up being captured and tormented by Black Mask. In the end, she succumbs to her injuries, but it was later revealed that this was because Tompkins, who recovered Stephanie, allowed her to die, all to prove a point to Batman about raising kids to become vigilantes. This would later be retconned so that, in truth, Dr. Tompkins had actually faked Brown's death to prove a point, but took her with her afterwards when she fled, not actually allowing her to die. I mean, I agree with that retcon because I feel like otherwise Wow, you made Leslie seem like really terrible. And yeah, that would be awful. Still though, if Batman had never had Robins to begin with, Stephanie would have never joined him, been fired, and then ended up almost dying after falling into the dangerous, sadistic hands of Black Mask. All in all, a lot of grief could have been avoided if Batman just didn't have Robins. Number 6. A Batcave bedroom. In Frank Miller's All-Star Batman and Robin, the list of injustices committed against poor Robin, Dick Grayson, are very long. Included in this long list is the time that Bruce made Robin sleep in the Batcave. Literally, Bruce Wayne is a super rich millionaire type who has a giant house and could have let Robin sleep anywhere else. But here, Batman is trying to, I don't really know, is teach Robin a lesson? Torment him into submission? I'm not really sure of the motivation, but either way, he feels it's better if Robin is forced to sleep in the Batcave to learn probably some kind of lesson. The Batcave is a literal cave, by the way, so it's drafty and completely unsuited for sleep when it comes to comfort levels. I feel like it might be time to call child services on Batman. Someone get Robin help. Number 5. Rats for dinner. As if the previous point wasn't enough, Bruce not only deprived Robin of a warm, dry, and draft-free place to sleep, but he also deprived him of a rat-free place to sleep. The Batcave you see is filled with rodents apparently, and when young Dick Grayson asked Batman and Alfred about dinner, he was refused any food from the household and instead told that he should catch his own supper, forcing him to dine on rats. What is happening? All-Star Batman was really brutal, not just to people he didn't like, but even to those he supposedly did like, such as Robin. Although I think maybe Batman needed to turn Robin into like a big jerky jerk like him in this universe before he would fully like him, because this Batman was definitely a jerky jerk. So maybe that's what was up with all the making him sleep in the Batcave and eat rats and stuff. Number 4. Slept with Batgirl. Although honestly, I wish I could count this for Babs too, but she's never been a Robin, so although it feels like there is some injustice that was done to her here as well, we're just going to focus on the pain that these two caused Dick Grayson, Nightwing, who is basically Batman's surrogate son in almost every reality, and probably one of the most famous Robins. This one comes from the Batman Beyond continuity and apparently happened when Dick Grayson was out of town. Not only is this messed up because, well, I mean, Babs was Dick's girlfriend, akin to a daughter-in-law to Bruce, but he also ended up getting her pregnant. The affair between Bruce and Babs ruined Nightwing and Batgirl's relationship, obviously, and afterwards Bruce didn't even stay with Barbara as the two broke up after she lost the baby. Major yikes alert. Number 3. Unable to save Robin. In this case, Batman was unable to save Robin this time around in the Batman Beyond universe when he was kidnapped by the Joker and Harley Quinn. For this one, we're talking about Tim Drake Robin. Tim Drake was out on patrol on his own. He ended up kidnapped and hidden in Arkham Asylum for 3 weeks, with Batman unable to find him while he was tormented and brainwashed by the Joker and Harley into becoming Joker Jr., and also was coerced into revealing secret intel about Batman as well. This whole thing, it was pretty awful. And although Batman can't be held responsible for Joker and Harley's actions here, it is pretty strange that Robin managed to stay missing for 3 weeks, and also that he remained hidden away in such an obvious place as Arkham Asylum. I thought Batman was supposed to be one of the world's greatest detectives. The pain didn't end there for Tim either. No one would happen to catch a sneaky microchip that was implanted in Tim, which years later would actually cause him to regress, with Joker's personality gradually taking him over again. Fortunately, Terry McGinnis' Batman at that point was there to save the day and managed to destroy the chip, freeing Tim for good. But that wasn't Bruce Wayne Batman, that was Terry McGinnis Batman, so just saying. Number 2. Dead. Probably one of the worst things even in Batman's mind that he has ever done to any of his Robins is when he let Jason Todd die. Well, I mean, he didn't let him die. He wasn't just like standing there and he was like, yeah, I'm just gonna look the other way for this one. He did try to save him, but unfortunately he made it too late. This also would create a major shift for Jason, who would return many years later, alive once more, feeling as though not only did Batman fail to save him, but he also failed him in the sense of abandoning him, as Jason did manage to survive. Now granted, Batman and the rest of the Bat family, they never knew about that. So although Jason still holds this grudge somewhat even today, it feels like he's expecting a lot from Bruce and company. Cause like, they would have been there for you, Jason, if they knew. However, if you ask Batman, not being able to save Jason Todd would probably be pretty high up on his own list of worst things he has ever done to a Robin. Number 1. Killed almost all of them. Despite it being in the name, it's sometimes easy to forget that the Batman who laughs was also once very much Bruce Wayne and the vigilante hero known as Batman. However, after being exposed to some very noxious Joker venom stored in Joker's spine and last breath, as Batman snapped his neck, killing him, Batman began to change. He became more and more paranoid and villainous, becoming ultimately an insane, almost hybrid version of hero and villain. Part Batman, part Joker when it came to his psyche. This prompted Batman to summon all of his Bat family members, but rather than ask them for help, he killed them all. Well, all of them except the Robin who was also his son Damian Wayne, who he instead offered a place at his side. Damian accepted and was spared, but every other Robin was pretty much murdered by the Bat himself, at least in this dark multiverse reality.
Kicking off the list at number 10, the Flying Graysons. Of course, we have to start here, right at the beginning. When he was just 12 years old, Dick Grayson was a circus acrobat, and he was part of his family's act named the Flying Graysons of the Haley Circus. When they were on tour in Gotham City, Dick overheard crime lord Tony Zuko threaten the livelihood of the performers over extortion money. The owner refused, and then later that night, Dick had to watch his parents fall to their deaths due to a wire snap. So he grew up, of course, feeling responsible for his parents' death. Similar to Bruce Wayne's origin, this was just the beginning. And before we head over to number 9, guys, if you could go ahead and give us a thumbs up down below because it helps out the channel so much, you have no idea. You guys are the best ever. Thank you so much for watching and being part of the team. Now back to number 9. Number 9, bullied. So following the tragic events of the Flying Graysons, Dick had to be sent away to a horrible juvenile service system due to the fact that social services were full. This wasn't a great place by any means. I mean, he was beaten up by other kids. I mean, talk about things going from bad to worse. First, he has to watch his parents die, and then he gets put in a place that he desperately tries to escape after not being there long at all. Poor kid. So during this first attempted getaway, he came across Batman, who talked to Dick and promised him that he wouldn't be there much longer. Now this turned out to be true, seeing as shortly after, he had a foster parent named Mr. Wayne, and he says they both have a lot in common. Number 8, Robin vs. Robin. Following Infinite Crisis, Brothers in Blood is a Nightwing storyline that's part of the 1 year later event. So Dick Grayson moves to New York, and then he sees another Nightwing is there, and he's taking care of criminals in a much more nasty, brutal way. I mean, like, much, much darker. So who could this be? The suited up Dick Grayson is then approached by the fake Nightwing, who turns out to be none other than Red Hood, Jason Todd. So of course they fight, and Dick Grayson is knocked off of a building, with Jason Todd of course preaching how much more the city of New York liked his take on the Nightwing mantle. You know, with shooting and stabbing New York's criminals, you know, rather than putting them in jail and not shooting or stabbing said criminals. So the pair ended up fighting again, and Jason Todd won again. The two ended up teaming together, but I mean, seeing Robin versus Robin, that's one we don't get sick of seeing. Number 7, he got fired. Getting fired is the worst, especially if you're a super crime fighter, okay? This is war, Dick. Robin is my second, my lieutenant. Anything less than total devotion to this cause is simply wasting my time. I'll say it again, Dick. You're fired. Get out of my cave. And cue the dramatic music. The tribe has spoken. Get out of here. So Robin, aka Dick Grayson, came back as Nightwing in 1984 after he was fired from the role of Robin. See, initially Batman decided that he wasn't fitting for the role. So in Nightwing Year 1, Part 1 of 6, we see this unfold back at the cave where Bruce delivers the 2 words that echoed in his head. You're fired. Well, as the issue says, one door closes and another one opens. Number 6, he gets sent to an orphanage. So while I previously mentioned how Batman got Dick out of a hostile living situation with other kids, Batman is also the same guy who would kick him out in World's Finest issue 153. So although it's an imagination story, we still got to see the birth of a popular meme. The bat slap. As if getting slapped by Batman wasn't bad enough, Bruce actually wiped Dick's memory and sent him to an orphanage. All because Dick thought Batman was in the wrong for trying to kill Superman. See, sometimes taking the high road just gets you slapped. It's, you know, it's part of the hero gig. Number 5, the helicopter crash. So in issue 147 of Nightwing, we see Harvey Two-Face Dent do a little good for Dick Grayson. So this is after Batman had apparently died. So Two-Face tips off Nightwing on a young woman named Carol Benjamin who needed help. So Nightwing swoops in to save the day. While trying to help her get to safety via a helicopter, bullets start to fly in from the darkness, and officers are being taken out left, right, and center. So while the helicopter is going down, Nightwing saves Carol right at the last second, but not without getting hurt during the process. Don't worry, that's not your blood, he says. It's mine. and there's quite a bit of blood. Number 4, shot by the Joker. Being the sidekick to Batman sounds like the greatest gig ever, but eventually I'm sure you want to go about your own way. So when he was just 17 years old, Dick Grayson was actually shot in the shoulder by the Joker, so Batman decided that would be a perfect time to end his crime-fighting days. Well, this might have been just the push that he needed, because that's when Dick donned this new Nightwing persona in the first place. He came back stronger and ready to go. All it took was a nice bullet in the shoulder to get things in motion. Number 3, shot. Again. So during the Batman War Games storyline, Act 3, Part 3, Dick is shot. Again, he actually gets shot quite a bit. Each, I imagine, gets more painful than the previous. I don't think that's a feeling you get used to, like tattoos, I don't know. So Gotham City is not a safe place at all during this storyline, obviously. Chaos has erupted with villains like Black Mask, Killer Croc, and Tarantula trying to bid control over the city. So there was an order from a new police commissioner to shoot anybody in costume. That includes Nightwing. So while he was scrapping it out with Firefly, a Gotham City police officer took his shot and nailed Nightwing right in the leg. Number 2, beaten up by Two-Face. The first year of any job can have its hiccups. For the boy Wonder, those hiccups left scars and bruises, evidently. So in Robin Year 1, Issue 2, we see Robin try and save Batman and the DA of Gotham. He gets restrained and he watches as Two-Face flips a coin to decide the DA's fate. But the deal, of course, is still a lose-lose. After cutting the DA free, they proceeded to fall into water and drown. And after that, he beats Robin to a pulp, all while Batman has to stand there tied up and watch the whole thing. And finally, number 1, shot in the head. Okay, we got bullets being fired into shoulders, legs, but this last one, it's gotta be the worst. It has to be the worst. We jump over now to Batman issue 55, where we see Nightwing and Batman patrolling Gotham City as usual. Nightwing playfully challenges Batman to a contest. Whoever jumps off the building and shoots their grapple gun first loses. It's kind of like a let's see who can get closest to the bottom. So Batman eventually agrees. They make the dive and Nightwing technically wins because Batman breaks early to attend the bat symbol. Still a win. I mean, we love games, right? Well, at the same time Nightwing and Batman were talking to Jim Gordon, KG Beast was taking aim at Nightwing's head. And then, bam, a bullet strikes Dick's head, and he wasn't the same afterwards. Fun grapple games, and then minutes later, serious brain trauma. The bad luck never ends with this guy. God.
Number 10, Dick Grayson failed vampire hunter. In the 1990s, DC released the Batman and Dracula trilogy, where the Dark Knight becomes a vampire himself. The world of the vampire Batman was revisited about 10 years later, and readers learned about the absolutely cheerful fate of that reality's Dick Grayson. In the story, we learned that the vampire Batman actually killed Dick's parents, and Dick became a vampire hunter in retaliation to that fact. When Dick tracked Batman down, the vampiric caped crusader turned the hunter into a vampire and forced the boy to forever serve as his assistant. Vampire Batman de-lifed the Robin's parents and then vampirically forced the young vigilante to serve the evil Dark Knight. Rough. Number 9, meme-worthy. Dick Grayson has quite the history of abandonment, but in World's Finest number 153 from 1965, the one guy he probably felt the safest with, Batman actually kicked him out of Wayne Manor. In an incredibly drastic move, Batman erases Robin's memory and sends him to an orphanage, all because Robin thinks Batman is wrong for attempting to take out Superman. Now, why does Batman want to do that in the first place? Well, Batman has come to believe that Superman is responsible for his father's death, which he wasn't. But it also turns out that the whole story was in an alternate timeline, so I don't know. Either way, completely slapping the heck out of the young man who you made your ward, erasing his memory and ditching him at an orphanage isn't really the most stable move. I shouldn't laugh at that, I'm so sorry. It did create an excellent meme though. Number 8, shot through the neck. As a vigilante, being shot at, stabbed, cut, slashed, kicked, punched, headlocked, stepped on, walked over, mutated, irradiated, blown up, stripped, shrunk, grown, hung upside down, beat with a crowbar, evaporated, disintegrated, burnt, gassed, and being the victim of harsh words are all part of the job description. But when a hero, or specifically a ward like Tim Drake, becomes victim to a nearly fatal shot through the neck while in the line of duty, Batman can't help but feel responsible. And that's exactly what happens in Batman issue number 125 from July 2022. Batman and Robin are infiltrating a gala held by none other than the Penguin. He gathered all the Gotham's elite into a room to try and subdue them with gas. While trying to get the hostages out of the building, Tim Drake fell victim to to a shot through the neck by one of Penguin's goons, prompting Batman to abandon the mission and rushed him to the hospital. It's mentioned that he will pull through, but we will have to wait till the next issue to find out more. Number 7. Nipples. A lot of the choices made throughout the making of the 1997 Batman and Robin movie were interesting, to say the least. Specifically, the designs of costumes, vehicles, and everything really were meant to look stylish, colorful, and eye-catching. The costumes were eye-catching for sure, but not for the reasons anyone intended them to be, I'm pretty sure. Since the release of the movie, the rubber nipples on the outside of both Batman and Robin's suits have become something of a laughing point for the comic book community. So yes, for this point, I'm talking about the fact that the movie makers and costume designers decided to give Robin's costume nipples. To make it worse, even when the heroes got some upgraded suits, Robin was the only one to keep the nipples on his costume. It's weird and it's uncomfy. Throughout the movie, Robin whines, yells, and pouts his way through key scenes, which kinda made the character annoying and unlikable. Kind of the opposite of what it was supposed to do. Both of these things are a definite loss for Robins. Number 6. Joker took out Dick Grayson's family, quote unquote? In the Death of the Family story, Nightwing aka Dick Grayson tries to warn Batman that their identities have been compromised. Howley's Circus, where the former Robin grew up until his parents were is set to open in Gotham soon. In an attempt to save his childhood fellow circus members, Dick decides to try and move it to another location, but he ends up being too late. Joker arrived before Nightwing could get there and takes out the main clown act and one of Nightwing's ex-girlfriends. He goes on to set up a surprise party for Nightwing decorated with the corpses of former circus performers and infects all of the remaining members with Joker venom so they attack the hero. Throughout this disturbing scene, Joker calls Nightwing a bat fake and a cheap imitation, and he says how out of all of the Bat family members, Joker hates Dick most of all because he believes the first Robin makes Batman the weakest. Number 5. The Dark Knight Strikes Again. The Dark Knight Strikes Again, Miller's sequel to The Dark Knight Returns, shows us just how crazy Robin can become. In a prequel series, All-Star Batman and Robin, we learnt that in this universe the Dark Knight had kidnapped and basically put Dick Grayson through psychological hell to turn him into Robin and Batman's ward. The Dark Knight Strikes Again continues the story, explaining that after Batman fired Dick for quote-unquote incompetence and cowardice, Dick went even crazier and underwent an experiment to gain superpowers. Now with the ability to shapeshift, this Robin actually becomes the new Joker and starts slaying superheroes all over the show. In the end, Dick Grayson and Batman face off in the Batcave, which Batman blows up to reveal a river of lava that he tosses his one-time sidekick into. Batman really isn't the greatest person all in all. That's what I'm gathering from this, at least. Not good. Number 4. Joker turns Robin into Mini Joker. The critically praised and fan-loved Batman Beyond animated series was set in a future where an old Bruce Wayne enlists high school student Terry McGinnis to become the new Batman. It's incredibly awesome and one of the best cartoons out of the very late 90s. Part of the fun of the show was learning what happened to all of Batman's rogues gallery and allies over the time that Batman had become old. Bane became an old man too, except dying from the venom that gave him his powers. Barbara Gordon became the commissioner of Gotham, and the Joker had been hard at work being utterly horrible. In the Batman Beyond Return of the Joker movie, we learned that Joker had actually kidnapped Tim Drake all the way back in the day when he was the current Robin. In a messed up series of events that, thanks to the nature of cartoons, were kid-friendly, Joker tortured the Robin, turning him into Joker Jr. Incredibly creepy as well as sad. Luckily, Tim Drake eventually gets his revenge, so thumbs up. Number 3. Stephanie Brown. Back to the actual comics, after Tim Drake quit being Robin, his ex-girlfriend Stephanie Brown took up the role. Batman reluctantly took her on as the new Robin, but fired Stephanie after she disobeyed a direct order. Stephanie wanted to prove that she was worthy enough by doing one of probably the worst things she could have done. Stephanie steals one of Batman's plans that was intended to take down all of the organized crime in Gotham, in theory. The plan is actually working great for Stephanie up until it reaches the part where a low-level crook named Matches Malone is supposed to show up. What Stephanie didn't know is that Matches Malone is a disguise disguise for Batman, and since Batman isn't privy to the fact that this is even happening, he obviously doesn't show up. This one failure in the plan leads to a citywide gang war, and before the bat signal can be lit, Stephanie is taken by Black Mask, who treats her most unkindly. Stephanie escapes her capture but unfortunately passes away later in the hospital. Number 2. The death of Damian Wayne. Damian Wayne, the 5th Robin, was trained by the League of Assassins to be a perfect killer. His mother, Talia al Ghul, gave her son over to his father, none other than Bruce Wayne, Batman. Not too much later, Bruce actually ended up sort of not really passing away, and Dick Grayson, the 1st Robin, took on the mantle of Batman, and Damian took up the role of the ward Robin. They worked really well together, but after Bruce returned, Talia and her secret organization, Leviathan, launched a massive attack on Gotham. Damian finds himself very outnumbered while fighting to protect Wayne Tower, and Nightwing does show up to help, and things start to go better, but unfortunately an adversary known as the Heretic, who is an aged up clone of Damian, shows up and impales the young Robin, piercing his heart and sending him to the afterlife instantly. It's heartbreaking both in terms of the Caped Crusaders' loss, but also for fans of Damian Wayne's character. Luckily, no one is truly gone forever in the world of comic books though. And number 1, you should all know what this is gonna be. This is one of those lists that just gets darker and darker as we go on. Jason Todd was the first ever Robin to be killed in action. In the infamous A Death in the Family story, DC not only slew a Robin, but they did it in the most slow, brutal, and disturbing way they probably could have. Jason Todd has disobeyed direct orders from Bruce to not go near the Joker. The problem was that Jason had just met his birth mother for the first time, who it turned out was a criminal working for the Joker. He went to the warehouse where the Joker and his goons were at with the intention of saving his mother, but in a heartbreaking turn of events, his mother betrays him to the Joker to save herself, which of course doesn't actually save her, as the Joker leaves her to pass away with Jason anyways. In an incredibly brutal comic book page, Joker is shown repeatedly beating Jason with a crowbar, but it's not the crowbar that is actually what finishes off the incredibly tough Jason. Joker leaves him suffering on the brink of the afterlife with an explosive device. The hero manages to push through his injuries to get to the door with the help of his mother, only to find that Joker had locked them in. Soon after the device goes off, Batman arrives on the scene. What's worse is that Jason's fate was left to a vote by readers. Fans voted in favor of death in a slim majority of 5,343 votes to 5,271 votes. But to make that matter worse, the majority of votes in favor of Jason's passing was possibly all from one person out in the world.